It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
There's a lot to what's going to happen on Tuesday with Trump and the court appearance, and I'm going to get to that, but I first want to get to the phones. I got Dan in Chicago on line one. Dan, what's on your mind, brother?
Hey, Rick. Thanks for having me on. Just wanted to talk about the fact that I feel like the new Republican campaign slogan is the corrupt Justice Department and the attack on the FBI, and so the law and order party is seemingly becoming the less and less law and order party. And I think I've only heard two Republican, I'll call them presidential nominees, or they're better in the field, speaking out against Trump. And so Tom Hartman, who I listen to quite a bit, was speaking about that those folks that they are shaming this probe and this indictment. I feel like they're not really running for president; they're just running for vice president or a cabinet position of some sort.
Yep.
And it's crazy to me to see that happening. But I'm also not surprised because I've seen this party, which I used to be a part of, and now I'm as far left as you can imagine. But it's just crazy to see like that whole, infrastructure just like crumble, just because of one man who controls 33% of the Republican.
Yep, and the Congress of the rest of the party. You're right. You're spot on.
It's insane, and Walsh, who I never agree with anything on. I agree with him on a lot of things that he was just talking to you about.
Well, that's how we became friends. When he was in Congress, he was my chew toy. I used to beat up on him all the time, and we've had conversations on it. And maybe we get back to that. But right now, it's about saving democracy, Dan. I appreciate the thoughts.
I agree completely. Yeah, thank you for your show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But the thing is when this happens on Tuesday. It's going to be an explosion for Trump, and this is going to be a huge thing. The question is how's this going to? What are we going to expect? That's why I've asked my good friend Renato Mariotti to come talk with us. Renato is a former federal prosecutor. He is also the host of the fabulous podcast On Topic, or It's Complicated. It's the It's Complicated podcast. We'll get links out on social media how you do that. Renato, thanks for taking time for us.
Absolutely. How you doing, Rick?
I am good. So what are we expecting on Tuesday? What's going to happen, do you think?
Sure. Well, I've handled, a few hundred arraignments in my life at least. What's going to happen is he's going to go into the courthouse. The judge is going to make sure he's aware of the maximum penalty he's facing, which has absolutely nothing to do, by the way, with the actual sentence someone receives. It's those bizarro numbers you hear, Paul Manafort is facing 580 years in prison or whatever it is, right? Some absurd number. He will be notified of the charges against him. In the olden days, they would actually read the indictment out loud. That's usually waived nowadays. And he will enter a plea of not guilty on all the counts. Then there's going to be some preliminary scheduling issues. In a case like this, a national security case, there's a kind of a protective order that's entered in the very beginning of the case to protect the sensitive material that's involved in the discovery. And there's going to be a bunch of date sets, and that's really it. It's a very perfunctory initial appearance that occurs in a case like this. He'll be informed of his rights and so forth, which are not going to surprise anyone. He'll be out on bond just like he was in the New York state case.
Now, I've had a couple people email me and said, well, it's a Trump appointed judge. They may toss it. They may just quash it. Is that possible?
No, this won't even be before Judge Cannon. It's going to be before a magistrate judge, which is essentially not a I want to say not a real judge. They are real judges, but they're not a judge under Article 3 appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. They're kind of temporary judges for a period of time. And they're there to sort of perform some of these more ministerial duties, like an arraignment. So this person is not going to be making a lot of big decisions tomorrow.
So any chance that Judge Cannon, throws a wrench into this? Any chance of that?
Absolutely, just not not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow.
I mean, she's a pretty big wild card. I mean, if you're kind of thinking about what are the potential problems with this case, what are the potential downsides, what might happen, there's no question that Eileen Cannon has got to be the top of the list. I mean, she could undo the entire case effectively. I mean, all she has to do is wait for the jury to be impaneled, and then she can effectively toss the case without really an ability to appeal that. So very a lot of power that goes to the district judge in a case like this.
Any chance? Because I've had a bunch of people say, well, this is not a big deal. That's what's going to happen. I've even had people say, well, they're going to be Trump supporters on that jury. You're never going to convict because the Trump supporters won't allow it. There are a lot of roadblocks in the way toward. So I don't want my lefty friends to get all excited. Oh, we got him like they did during the Mueller years. This is a step in the right direction, but there are a lot of challenges along the way, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a lot closer than Robert Mueller. Okay, this isn't a report; this is an indictment, so
right.
that's a significant difference. The charges are pretty serious. The evidence appears to be very strong. So there's a lot for people to be encouraged about if they're looking for a conviction here. But absolutely, there are a lot of roadblocks. Eileen Cannon is one of them. She can totally throw a wrench in the works, quite literally. Like you said, one juror. All you need is one person who's got very strong feelings about Donald Trump who refuses to vote to convict, and that's that. You have a hung jury. By the way, I was a federal prosecutor in Chicago when we prosecuted Rod Blagojevich. I was there during that first trial. And that first trial, the jury deadlocked on all but one count. And there was a single juror who was responsible for that. She just really liked Rod Blagojevich. So it's a very similar kind of figure, too, because they were very charismatic, fraudster types. Okay. And he convinced one person that was enough to get it past trial one. Obviously, there's a second trial, and he was convicted on a whole slew of counts. But that first trial, that one juror made the difference.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because this isn't going to be the first indictment coming down. We're expecting Georgia. We're expecting more down the road. But this is the most significant, I think, to this point. The thing in New York, that is what it is. But this is something I had a bunch of people tell me, no, it's the same as what Joe Biden did. What's the difference? And I've made my thoughts on this, but you're a federal prosecutor. You're the guy who looks at that 47 pages that I read with an amateur's eye. What in that is the most damning, do you think?
Wow. Well, there's a lot that's damning that's there. I certainly think that the words that his attorney said that he had told them was very damning. According to his own attorneys, who, by the way, were hired by Trump to help him. They're not trying to bury him. They were trying to help him. According to the attorney, he told the attorney to lie to law enforcement to try to hide and destroy documents. Right? I mean, that's serious stuff. That's the way that criminals operate. That's not the way we expect a former president to operate. So, that to me, that speaks 1,000 words right there. Obviously, his own recorded statement effectively admits the crime there, right? Like, hey, I've got all the secret stuff. I could have declassified it, but I didn't. But I'm sharing it to you now. Let me tell you, right? The attack plans or something. And that was pretty amazing. Speaking about speaking 1,000 words, the photos of lots of classified documents of like the toilet. There's one like strewn on the floor, right? That Walt Nauta found. I mean, it's sort of like, what do you like? What's your favorite piece of evidence? There's so much to choose from there.
Yeah, I mean, the pictures from the Trump Presidential Library were priceless.
Was that the toilet?
Yeah.
But I will just say, you asked earlier before you asked me that question, you had also asked about the difference between this and let's say what President Biden allegedly did. And you could throw in others, Mike Pence or Hillary Clinton or whoever else. Okay. And the fact of the matter is that, Biden and Pence are kind of in the same category. These are people who are vice presidents who left office they had a lot of papers with them, and some of them turned out to be classified later on. They discovered them. They let the government know. They surrendered the papers, and there's an investigation. Now, I think Pence has already been cleared. Here's the crazy thing. Donald Trump was in exactly that same position shortly after his presidency. So there was a lot of boxes that went down in Florida. He had a fantastic defense. His defense was, I was the president. There's a lot of people moving boxes around, a lot of boxes going around. How do I know what's in the boxes? How do I know what these people are doing? I'm the president. I don't keep track of what's in some random box. Great defense. If he had just said, okay, just turn everything back over, it would have been done.
Yep.
And it's super clear when you read the indictment that they asked him very politely, like pretty please with sugar on it, will you give us the stuff back? A bunch of times. They eventually issued a subpoena. Then there's this like personal visit, like where they came out like, hey, have you read our subpoena? Please give us the stuff. And then all he's doing is he's trying to obstruct and find a way to get these documents. They were like his like it's almost like a kid's diary or something. It was like these classified documents matter so deeply to him that he was willing to risk going to prison for them. It was really something.
No, it's crazy, and I think a lot of it speaks, to just who he is as a person, in my view. And I said at the beginning of the show, I think this is the first time in his life that anyone ever told him no, and he doesn't like it, and he's going to, as every 2 or 3 year old does. When you tell them no the first couple of times, they fight. They fight like hell to get what they want. This is how I see this.
Yeah, it's very juvenile. It really paints a bad picture of him. I mean, it is one thing that really is something is, of course, to see how this is solidifying in many ways the support of some Republicans forever. They're still rallying around him. I mean, the picture it paints of him, even if you believe, I mean, there are defenses to this, the Republican defenses to this basically amount to two things. One is the Presidential Records Act means everything is his, okay, which is not actually what it says. It says basically the opposite. Or secondly, well, Hillary did it too.
Right.
Okay. Or Biden did it too, or whatever their thing is. But none of them are like, yeah, this is an amazing individual and he's doing a great job protecting our national secrets. Like, no one's saying that, right? Like, yes, like I lock my biggest secrets in the toilet as well. Like that's what I do. I like put my my will and my it's diamond jewelry. I put it all my valuables in my bathroom or in
not just the bathroom.
Ballroom.
I mean, if you read the indictment, these boxes they traveled. They were in a ballroom. They were over here. They were over there. They kept shuffling them around, trying to find places to hide them. I mean, it's just remarkable. Last question I've got for you, because again, what the Republicans are doing, and I think for their base, this rings, the victim card is what they've got to play. That this is all the DOJ doing Biden's bidding. That this is all a political witch hunt. They've weaponized the DOJ. Now, again, you've been a federal prosecutor. In looking at what's happened, I'm curious where your thoughts on that kind of a victim card being played is.
The funny thing, it's such a juxtaposition, Rick. The funny thing is, anybody reading this indictment sees that the FBI and DOJ gave him special treatment. He was treated with kid gloves. I mean, I'll just tell you right now, I was a federal prosecutor for a decade, and I've been in private practice for the last several years. I was in private practice before then. Now I've been in private practice for several years. I represent clients all the time. And I'm just going to tell you right now, my clients don't get this sort of special treatment. When they have some evidence the government wants, I don't get like the special happy thank you note or request. Hey, here's a polite letter. Would you please get us the contraband in your house? Would you please provide that to us? Take your time, okay? But just you could just when you get around to it, would you please give it to us? I never get that. I mean, I get calls from people like, the FBI was trying, was screaming at my wife saying I'm going to prison if I don't talk. I mean, those are the sort of, that's the kind of calls I get from clients. I don't get calls like from clients who are like, oh yeah, the FBI is going to take us at our word that we returned all this stuff. Just let them know that we've done it, and just they'll take us at our word. I don't get those kind of calls. So the idea that this guy is the victim of some sort of witch hunt, this guy is literally been treated with the biggest kid gloves. But the irony of the whole thing, Rick, is that's what makes the case so strong. If they had gone in the way they ordinarily would, like if you or I, if in your little recording studio, if there's a bunch of classified documents in there, the FBI wouldn't wait. They would just go in and take the stuff, right? They might have, you might have some defenses if they did that to Trump. But with Trump, the fact that they were so polite, ironically, made the case much stronger.
So I guess last question: does he get convicted, and if he's convicted, does he see jail time?
Okay. First of all, if he's convicted, does he get convicted? He should be convicted. If this was John Doe, I would say it would be virtually a certainty. Slam dunk. The two words that really to me really give me some pause is Eileen Cannon, and who knows, because she definitely could throw the case, tank the case for again, or throw the case if she wanted to. And then regarding prison time, if this was John Doe and he did not commit obstruction, it would be a few years if he pled guilty. That's what I've literally looked at comparable cases. People in the military just keep a bunch of docs in their house and for don't give them back right away. They get a few years if they plead. With the obstruction, I would tell somebody, if you plead with the obstruction, maybe high single digits. If you go to trial, maybe low double digits. That would be my guess. But with Trump, who knows? I mean, Eileen Cannon could give him 0 years of prison. It's a lot of discretion to the individual judge regarding sentencing. But I think this is as serious of a case as DOJ could bring, and may very well be the most serious case that DOJ ends up bringing.
We will see how this plays out. But Renato, as always, I appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule to keep us up on this and give us some thoughts. Thanks so much, man.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Our good friend Renato Mariotti. Remember, check out his podcast. It's Complicated Podcast. We'll get links out on how you can take a look at that. Want to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, something on your mind? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around.
The best way to strengthen America's economy? How about investing in America's fastest growing industry? Clean energy. It means millions of jobs that pay well and can't be outsourced. And lower utility costs for families. Congress, let's get it done.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The old factory towns in America's heartland have been taking a beating. Thing is, though, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Unions are making a comeback. More organizing in the last couple of years than in a long time. And the Biden administration being more supportive of unions than any president since FDR. We're finally turning things around after 40 years of screwing over working people. But will we keep moving in the right direction? That's our choice as Americans.
I'll tell you one of my favorite stories over the weekend that I came across. It's one of those things that drives me nuts. St. Louis, there was a story of parents, and again, I look at Trump, bad parenting by Donald Trump's parents. I think so. Someone who, again, I don't think has ever heard the word no. But evidently in St. Louis County, there were parents who were angry In fact, the word I think the report used was fuming mad that they weren't able to go to their child's 8th grade graduation ceremony. Oh no, they were fuming. Social media posts. This is my problem with social media. They never give you the whole story. They give you the outrage. They give you I was turned away. And my poor precious, look at her cry because she's so sad. So I had to go look this story up. And this is again, what's wrong with our society and bad parenting. Turns out the little darlings that didn't get to go to their graduation, 8th grade graduation, were people who, well, poor attendance, fighting in school, other misdeeds. They messed up. And I started thinking back to when I was in school. I remember the 2 weeks before graduation. And the principal was very clear. You do something stupid, you don't get to walk. And kids understood that the ceremony of walking and getting your diploma was not about them. This isn't about the poor little precious 8th grader being able to walk and I graduated from 8th grade. It had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with the parents. And this is one of those weird moments where things have changed. Again, had I gotten kicked out of my high school graduation, and granted I was not anywhere near the top of the class, my grandmother would have lost her mind. Had they said, no, you can't go, she would have been very unhappy because that meant something to her. And as students, you don't want to disappoint your grandparents or your parents, or at least I hope you don't. And this is where having, I don't know, common sense and having parents that enforce rules, this is important. And I'm glad that this school did it. My question, and this is where my mind went, why aren't all the schools doing this? Why have we allowed parents to run roughshod over the local public schools in ways that the bad actors, the ones who are causing problems, not doing their work, not showing up for class, they get rewarded like everyone else? And I know I sound like an old curmudgeon. No, there might be problems. Yeah, there might be problems. It's called bad parenting. Because I go back to, and if my mother were alive and if I didn't get to, I think about, the milestones in school that had my mother not got to see, she would have beat me senseless. And I know we're not allowed to hit kids anymore. That's bad. But there's got to be some punishment. Like my kids, I've never touched any of my children. But they don't know that I won't. And that fear is much worse than that actually happening. And they wouldn't anyway, out of respect. At least I hope they wouldn't. But this is where we've gotten to as a society. This is how and social media is a huge part of this. Because I've said a million times, social media is where people are the worst versions of themselves. They're the worst possible people online. For instance, I said at the beginning, I got COVID last week. And I was starting to get my making sure the will's up to date, making sure, because who knows, I'm struggling. Lungs are filling up with icky stuff. Not happy, not breathing well. Better make sure everything's in order. The old George Carlin, 2 minutes, get your what together. And I started thinking about this, and I keep coming back to the kind of society that we live in where no one's accountable anymore. No one's responsible. The Republican Party used to be the party of responsibility. They were supposed to be the fathers. If you remember those frames, they were supposed to be the paternalistic ones. And the Democrats were maternalistic. They were the soft. They were, oh no, you poor baby. What happened to the Republicans? What happened to the paternalistic GOP? I want to know. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Bob Ney former Ohio Congressman, political analyst, to share some thoughts on, well, what we're going to see over the next couple of days. Back after this.
I've been driving buses for 5 years, and my day-to-day routine is I wake up a little earlier than most people. I get on a bus, I go out, I pick up some students and make sure they get to school nice and safe. Here in Fairbanks, Alaska, that can be a challenge because of the winter weather and the icy roads. But I love the job. So the Teamsters are great. They provide us a lot of protections. They've always taken care of their people, made sure that our jobs were secure. We didn't have to worry about whether or not we'd have a job from day to day.
And that's amazing because before we'd be working 4, 6, 8 hours a day and only earning minimum wage was real difficult to make a living. And then the Teamsters pushed a law so we make something we can live off of and not have to have a second job. What absolutely gives me peace of mind. The union membership allows me to focus on this job without having to worry about whether or not my family is going to be taken care of. I'm Andrew Case, and I'm proud to be Teamsters Local 959.
Indigenous people have been saying that we feel a shift in the climate for decades. Climate change is here. The time is now to pass the torch on to the next generation of clean energy warriors. We need to put the land back to work for our people. That means creating jobs for them to live and thrive in our communities. The time is now. Congress must invest in clean energy.
Before we close the program, we want to take a moment to thank our viewers and to share a little bit about why we do what we do. At the Rick Smith Show, we believe that media today is almost entirely controlled by corporate greed. So we have now 24-hour news channels. But instead of 24 hours of news, what we get is 1 hour repeated 24 times, and with tons of commercials creating obscene amounts of profits. Information once presented as a public service has now become a private commodity. So when lies make money, lies are what we get. We get a corporate-controlled rage machine feeding us anger and hate, trying to convince us that our problems are right-left or red-blue, when they are and always have been up-down, the wealthiest 1% versus the rest of us. Our goal is to be an alternative to that machine, not as a news show with a fancy journalist out front, but as a talk show run by a union truck driver and a team of working-class heroes just like you. Everything we do, both what we get right and what we get wrong, is dedicated to advancing the interests of America's working families. No corporate ad buys, no think tanks, no focus groups, no talking points. We are media by working people, for working people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.